today. I'm actually not quite certain, firstly, what I'm doing with such a coveted lineup of speakers, but I can do my best. First of all, if I may ask, genuinely, I'm not sure how many people here have actually had a situation in their life where they've had, it's kind of like a, excuse me, I'm going to walk away from the who have had basically a situation in their life where something tends to change the direction of their life. Has anybody here, well, I'll put my own hand up firstly, as a person who's basically sincerely travelled a journey and then taken a complete sideswipe? I'm going to share with you a few different things, and really what I want to share today in specific is about kind of a very simple and a humble journey that I travelled myself to take a difference and take a change in my own direction of life. And hopefully it will be interesting and may resonate with some. The reality is very simple. I'm not sure how I can live up to the lineup of people, and Dr. Undul over there, and Krish, I think he's gone again, and obviously Richard as well, previously. But I'll do my best. And what I will tell you is I'll share with you, if it's okay, if everyone, I'll share with you the journey that took my change. In life, I have been involved in property, in development, in retail, in e-tail. This is obviously not a boastful comment, please. I understand it to be a kind of a legitimization, maybe, for myself, forget about yourself, but I'm actually asking myself and thanking you to come on the stage. Now, it's a very kind of a dear situation with myself. I was at the peak of my potential, as Padam said, in the 25s to 30. I've been involved in retail, manufacturing, electronics, through to manufacturing of housewares, and also been sincerely involved in developing property, estates, that kind of stuff of that sort of nature, which is very simple with most of us in here, I'm sure. So money was what originally I assumed was my driver in life. I thought basically my intention in life was to create a portfolio for the sake of money, for the sake of being wealthy, because I'm not sure if anybody else here thinks, but we're quite kind of driven towards having wealth in its more monetary sense, in a more tangible sense in our lives. For me, it was originally what I thought was the case. So I spent a lot of my time intervening, looking at how I could make I suppose a quick buck, or maybe something, and I'm being very honest with myself, maybe a quick buck, maybe some kind of a way of short-circuiting my success in life. In hindsight, I'll tell you in a moment why, because I want to pass you through a little personal journey that took me very close to my faith, towards spirituality, towards humbleness, which I think is inevitable in everybody's life at some point. Whether we follow the original understanding now, do quote unquote a part of the money, but I do make a mistake. If I make a mistake, please be fair with me, and if you can, please allow me to make an error or mistake and thank me afterwards, show me afterwards. Gurudev Mata, Gurudev Pita, Gurudev Swami Parameshwar. We have to then go through 4 stages of our life. This also connects, in my opinion, with a logic such as spiral dynamics. Obviously, this basically teaches us that we have an imprint period of our life in the 0 to 7 of our life. This is like a time frame when, have you ever heard the concept of people saying children tend to soak things up like sponges? That basic context is with what's called this critical faculty is removed from our brain, which is the conscious mind that's thinking, why am I actually doing certain things in life? Those principles, if we migrate them across into our body, which was 600 years ago, give or take a few years, the reality being that Gurudev Mata, our mother, Gurudev Mata was Gurudev is a teacher for the friends here who are actually listening and don't quite understand Gurwani. As myself, I put myself fully, so I'm trying to attain myself a bit further and further logic. Gurudev Mata, Guru is a teacher. The teacher of our first teacher in our life is our mother. And our mother would tend quite logically to migrate across in teaching us about the main ethics of our life, which tend to be unchallenged by us at that age, 0 to 7. So then we move to the next stage where we say Gurudev Pita, which is Guru, Dev meaning give, is our father. He tends to show us, in accordance with spiral dynamics, just to give it a link of today's society and learnings of psychology, we would suggest that we connected very sincerely with basically you're talking the modelling period of our life. Now I'm talking stereotypically, I'm sure, but at one time in our life we tend to have your mum to show you humility and the softness of your life and your love. Then you move towards your father, which tends to give you much more secure, stronger. He has this perception of trying to be the tough person in your life. He has to specifically share. This is very succinct with my own personal life. This is why I'm sharing this information. My mum is exactly that, the soft, lovely, sort of loving person, which has been very, very key to my success, my progression in life, as I've grown forward. The reason why I'm bringing this into the context today is because there's a certain part of my life which flipped the whole of what I thought was important to me. We're talking about being true to ourselves, and Dr. Miller there. Now, that is the key point. I was taking some real mind notes from that point for myself. It's been very sincere in the change in my life. In 2006, I was at the prime of my, you could say, my business career within, at the moment, electronics, which I built up to be the 6th largest in the industry of car audio. We accepted with strategies that basically took the whole industry by standing, and we grew exponentially. The reality being that I thought I was at the peak of my potential, and I think, the world's my oyster. I should push myself further and further and get further into a bigger business, and on we go. It's about money. Again, back to the original feeling of money. I realised after 2006, if I'm sincere and clear, in 2006, I'm just going to touch it very quickly if I may, so I'm aware that we've got time issues as well. In 2006, I was actually in West Coast America opening up a distribution of one of my products. I had a situation where I must have contracted or ingested hepatitis A, which was actually a liver disorder, as we all know. I'm sure there's more learned people out there. I'm just giving you very simple and telling you how my journey took. It sat in my system. I didn't really see any difference with it, so I wasn't aware of it. 3 weeks later, I started seeing some metabolism changes, which then left me very, very uncomfortable within myself. I started getting some agitation in my neurology, in my head. My life really was starting to do. I left the impetus of the clarity I was driving. I was driving for money and drive, getting the next business set up and expanding, opening more houses, putting more rental properties on and stuff. 2006 took a massive change in me. It basically ground me to a halt to mid-2006 when I actually came back. And I don't want to lengthen this because it's quite a long story. In July of 2006, I actually ended up in hospital at 2 hours away from what, in hindsight, I would have realised it was 2 hours away from death itself. Now, as we know within our Sukhi, we do not believe that everything is pre-written. So we don't believe that, death itself just needs an excuse in our logic to sort of say, this is the reason why I was going to depart. So my time wasn't there. The reality was, because me being so driven, I've always been pushing myself to the next level of wealth, money. I'm not sure if anybody here feels as though they're in this like a chain, like a circle, something that spins round. I'm not sure if anybody else here feels that sort of way. I can see a nice nodding head. There's Chris at the back as well. The reality is that this is exactly where I was. I was in a situation where I thought myself that life was all about this spin. This sort of spindle kept spinning. What I realised in 2006, which I believe is Maharaja's hub, the hand of God, they turned around and struck me down and got me in a situation where I actually collapsed at work, and we're actually home on the way back from home, and collapsed and went into hospital. They put me into isolation. I spent 2 months in hospital with reference to not really knowing what the problem was, because somehow I had actually fought off hepatitis. So in hindsight, I think, was it just an excuse for my body to exhaust itself and come down? The reason why I bring this up is there's a lot of people here who are excessively driven. I can see from the eye contact, everyone's very, very driven. You're all the coveted individuals coming from the city. My stance to yourself is very, very simple. Balance your life with something that you can actually kind of soften your life with. And I'm sure many of you are probably into yoga or something of that sort of nature. This is what happened with my life. I decided afterwards, most people return after I went through a near-death experience and 10 months away from my group of companies, losing £2.5 million within raw capital because I was away from the company. The company just carried on working without me, which in many, many ways of learning that actually, you can two key, these are all key points that we need to take into consideration. Your own company, in your own group, you need to ensure that you're replaceable and there's strategies and stuff in place. We learn these the hard way, I'm sure. But for me, it was basically a very sincere time in my life. I came back out of the illness about 11 months later, looked back at my then sort of career and looked back and said, I've got to change something in life. So really it's about the journey that I took place now, which I look back and instead of looking for problems instead of blaming somebody else for my fact of me being ill, me being at the peak of my potential, me being worth X million, me pushing myself to open another new company and branding myself as an individual, I turned around and realised that I should actually look back and take positives from what I think's happening in life. The fact that my life was in this consistent spiral of disvaluation for my own personal life, for the people around me possibly, because of my vision to push myself to the next level, which I think is right. But with this, we need to humbly connect with a balance of humility involved as well. Now, my sister over here is also a yoga asana person. Now, she's an instructor that's sort of like, this is the kind of stuff we need to balance life with, to make it nice and simple and easier to us to attain high, but then also to balance it with also a level of giving, handing back to society, to ourselves as well, to regenerate our energy. When I came back, I looked back at the business and I said, do you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. I sincerely believe that I've come for a bigger mission. This is really what my point is. And 10 minutes is not really a lot to sort of spare, to share this with yourself. So if you do feel that you would like to ask a few more questions, I'll be humbled to talk about it later. So I'm really short of time as well. But the reality is I wanted everybody to understand that in life, journeys are all meant to be. Everything is with Maharaj's hukum. And everything that we do in life, my meaning now is to share every single learning that I've had as best I possibly can, to try and make any changes that I possibly can for anybody else who's trying to migrate themselves and feel they're locked up in a little world of, I seem to have blocked themselves in. So mind control is what I'm trying to achieve through Maharaj's Bani, through the Guru Granth Sahib itself. But for others, it could be just spirituality. It could be just the fact that we just want to turn around and get the understanding of what we need to do next to sort of move ourselves forward in life and take a step forward and say, I'm doing the right thing. Some of us might be sitting in this room, like myself at that time, thinking, I must be doing the right thing. I've got all the money I want. I've bought these Ferraris and Lamborghinis and whatever else I've got in my drive. This must be right. I've got the house that I always wanted for my parents. In hindsight, we realised that all these things were materialistic things, but for somebody else. Now, going back to what Dr. Ju said over here, about understanding what means something to me, it was about how I could change everybody in my lives, in my world's lives. How could I actually share? How could I transmigrate them with any thought they've got in their mind? Helping them from a job perspective. Maybe they want to go into an SME market of their own. Maybe they want to take a step like Christian and take a side step and move into being a businessman of their own. That's the kind of migration that I try to help individuals with. Now, it's a bit of a short conversation here, but there's a particular reason for it, because I just wanted to share that in life we don't always have that little spinning top style of life where we can sit there and we're all stuck in our own little comfortable way. We should balance it out with some kind of a humility, some kind of giving back, whether for us it's faith, whether it's not faith, whether it's helping communities, whether it's what Richard was talking about earlier on, about how we get involved, and just at a time when it's needed to go and involve ourselves with the Guru Granth Sahib, with reference to the Gurdwaras, to the temples, to the churches, to synagogues, just to make a difference in somebody else's life, to give back. That's core to our understanding of being Sikhs. But really, I'm looking forward to sort of talking to yourself afterwards, and I do apologise that it's quite a short presentation, but I hope there's been some kind of a learning in there that you can probably take and migrate and actually attain to yourself, and hopefully take some time to change mind action with it as well. This is the very first time, for reference as well, but and I want to thank you and all the City Sikh seniors, that it's the very first time I've spoken in front of a sit-down crowd with like a plenty, hence why I've moved myself out of the environment. So I do apologise if it's been a bit haberdash, but there's a lot of meaning behind what I'm trying to say to yourself. There's a lot of changes in people's lives, that there are personal journeys that we need to go. We need to have a reference of something that keeps us moving in the right direction, but we need to hold and embrace those changes, and then understand that if we're feeling a little puzzled and lost, all we've really got to do is establish a very strong anchor in our life, some kind of grounding, something that holds us stable at home. It could well be being in a relationship. It could be putting yourself into a community project. It could be getting involved, which is what Sikhs are very well known for, I'm sure, Richard. We're very much the givers of the world, very much connected with every single person spiritually that we meet. We try to endeavour to sort of engage with everybody. And I've always found myself, I'm not sure if anybody else finds themselves the same way, which I draw upon our nature as Sikhs as a whole. We always attempt to if I'm correct in saying this, we always attempt to take on the host society. Whoever we're talking to will pick up an accent. Whoever we're talking to tend to physiology, rapport, automatic connections. That's because we are very inherent in the way we are brought up. And I thank that to my parents, to my mum, to my father, who are very, very sincerely a senior part of my life, who act as my mentors, who act as my mentors in my life, and I would love to share, because my mission today is just literally to share as much knowledge as I possibly can, and to help people migrating themselves into business, helping them to just shift a little bit further from a little buck stop that they've got in their lives, to just step up and say, do you know what, I'm not the only one who's having this problem. It could be a life-death situation with myself that moved me forward and made me realise that I have a mission. I have to give back, and the reason why I worked within 20 sectors of industry is specifically to give this kind of knowledge back. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully, to the coveted seat over there and sharing a bit more with yourself. Thank you very much for your time.